Lily, come here. Up. 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 Lily, up. Up. Jesus Christ, this dog. Do you not understand what up means? Lily, come here. Come here. Up. Get up. Get up. Up. There we go. There we... Oh, okay. Okay. Hey, what is going on, everyone? It's me, Mr. Mario. This is my dog, Lily, right here. And this, right here, is the PlayStation Classic. Now, this is the third Classic system I've owned. I've unboxed the Nintendo Classic, the Super Nintendo Classic, and now we're going to unbox the PlayStation Classic. But I want to do something a little bit different. I'm going to unbox this, of course, with Lily. That's going to be the same. The difference here is going to be she'll be on the couch with me. No, that's not it. The other thing is, too, I actually do want to also give in this same video my impressions and even recommendations in this. So stay tuned. That's going to be later in the video. But what I'm going to do is unbox this thing. So this retails for $100. It comes preloaded with 20 classic games right here, which some of them include Battle Arena Toshinden, Cool Borders 2, Tekken 3, Rainbow Six, which has stumped everyone. Don't know why they included that one. Wild Arms, and 15 others that I'm not mentioning. I do want to say one thing I find to be a little bit funny, which shout out to Spawnwave Media. I believe he noted this on Twitter. On the back of it, it says something along the lines of, here, system recommended for ages 6 and older, yet the system is rated M by the ESRB for 17 and older. It's a little bit strange, but okay. So kind of just looking at all the other sides here, all that stuff looks good enough. Now, it also mentions it does not include an AC adapter, so you know what? Now, classic systems are pretty easy to find in stores. You might as well want to pick up a Nintendo or Super Nintendo Classic and just use the AC adapter from that on here. Maybe, I don't know, maybe they're helping out the competition with that. There's a lot more I want to say, trust me. I'm not going to talk about my thoughts about the system in the unboxing portion here. I just want to unbox it. But let's go ahead and take a crack at this, shall we? Let's see, let's see. And Lily does not even care about this. Unbelievable. And awesome. Of course, I end up ripping this a little bit here. Or taking off the ink, I guess. Oh, well. We'll just put that here for now. Now, Lily, do you want to sniff it? Sniff it. Okay. Let's go ahead and see what this whole thing reveals here. If we open this up. Now, this is... I was surprised when I saw this, because I've seen a few other unboxings in regards to this. But I was a little bit surprised to see that Sony still did the typical Sony of past few years fashion, where they had the really nice box on the outside, well, I guess the slip cover for the box itself. I don't really like that style much, to be honest. I'd rather the box actually looked like this, but instead this is the slip cover that goes over the box, but oh well. Here it just has the serial number and all that other stuff on the side, and it's pretty plain on the back, so nothing we're really missing out on at all. Right here, let's see. Kind of show that there. Opening this up, and what do we get inside? Look! Another box! My goodness, there we go, alright. So aside from the PlayStation Classic, let's see. We end up getting some instructions, the PlayStation Classic Instruction Manual. That's cool. I'm probably never going to look at this, but we have it. And here, we have the PlayStation Classic. Lily, what do you think? This dog doesn't care. This dog truly does not care about the system. She's probably been hearing all the news about the poor emulation with this, but oh well, we'll see. Now I have to say, this is my first time seeing one of these up close and personal. So open that up and take a look here. Oh, you think this is food? She thinks this is food. Yup, there we go. Alright. And I have to say, this thing looks nice so far. This thing really does look nice. Let me go ahead, open this whole thing up. And there we go. Cool. Now one thing, oh, this is unfortunate. So this is one thing that some friends and I, mainly Paranoid Coder and MVG Modern Vintage Gamer on YouTube here, that we've talked about. We've mentioned that nobody's been talking about the parallel I/O port on the back of this system. And there is one there for fashion, but you can't take it off or anything, which I wasn't really expecting, but I still wanted to see something. And I've seen teardowns of this, and unfortunately, there's nothing there. just on this portion of the board. There's nothing behind there, so it's not hiding anything. It's purely for aesthetic purposes, but it has an HDMI port on the back. It has a micro USB port on the back. Here we got 2 USB ports on the front for both controller ports. Let's see. Nice little button right there. It doesn't go in as much as, you know, a regular reset button would. The power button feels nice, though. And the open button feels nice as well. They're both, I mean, they're all quite clicky. Yes, Lily, they're quite clicky. And from what I understand, this turns the system on and off. This resets it, so it changes your game, takes you back to the main menu, and the open button ends up switching discs, so if you're playing something such as Metal Gear Solid, I don't know if there's any other 2-disc games on this system, but if you're playing Metal Gear Solid, you press the open button, and it ends up swapping discs for you, which is cool. And then, of course, it has, you know, registration stuff on the back. Awesome. And it even has, like, 4 little rubber pads on the bottom. This is a really cool looking system, I have to say. This is an incredible looking system. I love the way the PlayStation looks. I'm a bit of a original PlayStation fanboy. But yeah, this classic system here looks perfect. This is awesome. Oh man. So let me go ahead and put that over to the side here. Let's go ahead and open up the rest and see what is in here, shall we? If we can get it open. This is weird box setup. Alright, cool. So, you know what? We don't get an AC adapter, but we do get a USB cable right here, which I'll go ahead and rip open the USB cable. Let's see how long it's going to be. I hope it's like at least a 3-footer. It's definitely not going to be a 6-footer. And yeah, that's a 3-foot USB cable right here for anybody who's wondering, who might not know. So just be wary on that. Alright. Let's go ahead and throw that on the table here. Got an HDMI cable. HDMI cable doesn't really look all that long either, so, you know, I'm not even going to be opening this because I'm not going to use this HDMI cable, to be honest with you all. And right here, we have some PlayStation controllers, which I'll open up one of them because I'm going to use one at least. Oh wow, that actually feels nice. Feels authentic enough, really doesn't feel cheap by any means, I'll say that. But I do not like the non-analog controller, so this is going to be a tough system to play with, to be honest, because I really like my analog input, but oh well, we'll see. D-pad, buttons, everything else feels fine right there. There, Lily, you can have this. That's fine. Alright, cool. So that's about all we get with it. We got the box, of course we got the instructions, we got the 2 controllers, the HDMI cable, and the micro USB cable. So that seems to be it for the PlayStation Classic right here. Now, I kind of just want to show you all side by side real quick. I do have a original PlayStation. This is not the original, but this is a 9001 model. So unfortunately, this model does not have the parallel I/O port. You know what? That's something they actually both share. It's just this one has the aesthetic for it. This one does not. But as you can see, this is, I mean, everyone should have seen one of these at one point in their lifetime. And this is how big the PlayStation Classic is, comparatively. Lily, which one do you want? Pick one. Pick one. I think she actually wants the Classic more. So you know what? We're going to give this to Lily, because it doesn't have very good emulation on it, so she's not going to know the difference. And I'm going to stick to this one. No, but for real, actually, for real. Let me put this down. Next up, I do actually want to play around with this and see just how good, just how bad it is, what my recommendations could be for it, and just overall impressions. So, let's take a look. Thanks for kicking me off the couch. You all see this, right? So, it's been a few days. I've been messing around with PlayStation Classic here, as you can see. Lily, this is going to be your system now. You can... There, you can have it, I guess. There you go. So I've been messing around with the PlayStation Classic. I feel like I've gotten a good footing on it, and I want to give a honest review. So I've done the unboxing. I'd like to give you all my thoughts, my review, and my recommendations. So first of all, let's talk about the good about this system. When it comes down to it, for the game choice, like at least the games that you're paying for, it's not bad. You're paying $5 a game because it's $100 for the system with the 2 controllers, and it comes with the 20 games. $5 a game is certainly not bad. $5 is perfectly fine for any of these games right here. With the cheapest one probably being, I don't know, Cool Borders 2 or Rainbow Six. And of course there's many games on here that cost more than $5, because I said at least. But Wild Arms and Persona, those are a couple that are definitely going to cost you a good amount more than $5. So $5 a game is absolutely great at that price point. It comes with 2 of these controllers right here, so you're good to go right out of the box. No multi-tap capabilities, but there's no games on here that require 4 controllers at all. And the console itself looks cool. I have to say, it is a absolutely awesome looking system. Now, I love the way the original PlayStation looks, but I've seen 3D printed PlayStations, because I was actually looking, right before I got this, I was looking to see if I could get a 3D printed PlayStation case, and they just don't look nearly as good as this. So this is honestly the best mini PlayStation that I've seen. A close second would be the little mini PlayStation 3 gift card tin that I have on my desk that I've shown in a few videos. And that was from GameStop, but this is straight up from Sony. And I have to say, in all honesty, the emulation isn't bad. It's pretty good, I would say. Now let's talk about the negatives on this, and I'm going to use that same issue here. The emulation here is okay or pretty good, and I have to say for a $100 device, especially something that is straight up from Sony. Yes, they did end up using the open source PCSX-ReARMed emulator here, but for something that has, been designed, licensed, sanctioned by Sony, especially for a system this old at this point, I would say that okay to pretty good emulation is pretty unacceptable. And I also have to say that while as I have had fun with it, I have enjoyed this, mind you, because I'm going to be discussing the games and all that on here, it's incredibly also disappointing to see when there are other consoles from the same company that use in-house emulators that emulate better than this thing. So that's just disappointing. I'm just going to say that. That's not a good mark. Yes, on the positive side, it could be used for positives and negatives. Positively, the emulation's pretty good, but negatively, pretty good it should be excellent. It shouldn't be pretty good. And so, Lily, I'll go ahead and give this to you, right? Just stay still. We'll be good. Now, talking about the actual games themselves, this is another thing that I wanted to discuss. A lot of people found this list to be quite polarizing. Now, I'm of the belief that no one list of games from the PlayStation 1 library, 20 or 30 games, could have made everyone happy. I'm just going to be realistic about that there. But some of them are quite questionable. And I also want to say that I didn't just gloss over these games here. I took some time to review this, and I didn't beat any of these games, but I did take the time to go through and play at least 5 or 10 minutes of every game on here, and I've messed around with the system a little bit as well. She's hearing something. So let me go ahead and give you my opinions on all of the games here that I tried out. Ballerina Toshinden, not good. This game does not hold up in 2018. Cool Borders 2, I honestly didn't like the Cool Borders games back in the day. I didn't like it now. Destruction Derby, was not crazy about it. Final Fantasy VII, fantastic game. This is one of the games, there's been a few games on the system, but this is one of the games I had to force myself to stop playing so I can get through the rest of them. Grand Theft Auto, it's fun, but I'm going to be revisiting this one here. Intelligent Cube, I had no idea what to do on this, honestly. I was one of those people, I played the demo back in the day, didn't know what to do, kind of figured it out here. It was cool, mind you, not my cup of tea, but something I'm absolutely going to revisit. Jumping Flash, I thought this was very fun. I really enjoyed this game. Metal Gear Solid was fantastic as well. Mr. Driller was great. I loved that game. Oddworld Abe's Odyssey, I like the Oddworld games, so I enjoyed this here. Rayman, super fun. Really enjoyed that. Resident Evil Director's Cut, it's as cheesy and such as I remember it from back in the day. So, nice to have it on here. Definitely a nice touch to have it on here. Revelations Persona, fantastic game from what I played so far. I played a little bit of this years ago. I played a little bit of it now, and I do have to go back and revisit it, but it was one of those games, again, this, Metal Gear Solid, Final Fantasy VII, and a few others, these are some of the games I had to pull myself away from on purpose. Ridge Racer Type 4, this was actually a pretty relaxing game to play. I enjoyed it. Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo, I enjoyed this game quite a bit as well. Siphon Filter, I was never crazy about the Siphon Filter series, I'm going to be honest with you all, they were very jank to me. I don't know. Maybe I need to give another shots, but I didn't like them back then. I didn't really like it now either. Tekken 3, this game was fun, but I'm going to revisit this one as well too and give some further thoughts on it. Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six, this is the game that I have to agree with everyone else on, where I'm like, this has absolutely no reason to be on this list. I can't figure out or fathom why they chose Rainbow Six to put on this list. I didn't enjoy it. Okay, I didn't enjoy it. This is another game I really didn't like back then. Tried it again now. Didn't like it now either. And I think this would be something that would be better suited on a PC, for example, not the original PlayStation. Twisted Metal, this game was fun. Now, I don't like the first Twisted Metal that much, but I still had fun with it. And finally, Wild Arms. My goodness, this game was fantastic. This was probably the one I put the most time into. And also, I mean, it kind of helped that it was the last game I was playing on this system. But this is another game I had to force myself away from because I was like, hey, I gotta mess around with some other things. I gotta work on this video. But Wild Arms was great. So when it comes down to it, this is kind of a positive and negative here, and this is my opinion. But out of all the games on this system, I don't like 25% of the library, which isn't terrible. And I have to say, like, when it comes to the other classic systems, such as the Nintendo Classic and the Super Nintendo Classic, they had great games on there. They had games that really defined those systems. And then they had games that people couldn't figure out why the hell they were put on there, but that's going to be a more opinionated thing. There might be someone, for example, who absolutely loved Rainbow Six on the original PlayStation, and they might be super offended at what I said about it. But for me, I simply don't like the game. But whether you like the game or not, that's totally up to you. And by the way, one thing that a lot of people didn't notice, and some people worried about, in the game Metal Gear Solid, at one point you have to contact a character named Meryl, and it says something along the lines of her number is on the back of the CD case. This absolutely threw off people back in the day who did not have the complete copy of the game, because you had to flip the case over and you would find it right there in a screenshot. Well, Sony actually thought ahead on that one. Granted, the screenshot doesn't say Meryl, but on the back of it here, it has Meryl talking with Snake, and it has her codec number right there. So, if you're playing it and you end up forgetting what her number is and you don't want to look it up in a guide or anything else, you can literally just grab the back of the box and find Meryl's codec number right there. So, I have to say that touch was pretty nice. Now, I had talked about this not being super accurate, and that's still true. It's not a super accurate emulation, unfortunately, on here, but there are 3 games I wanted to talk about which I was having some specific issues with, and this is where they were coming up. First of all was Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo. I know it's just straight up, vertically. Now, I'd never played this game before, mind you, alright? Maybe this is how it was, I'm not sure, but this is the only game that had this issue. Vertically, it was too low. It almost looked like I was playing, you know, the wrong region copy on my system, but there was just a big black bar at the top of my screen. And it's the only game out of this entire collection that did that. I had not messed with the settings on it. I'm going to talk about that in a bit. And on top of that as well, I looked right here on the back of the box, and it doesn't seem to have that black bar on the top where it has that screenshot there. I don't know if anyone else can reproduce that, but I thought that was extremely strange. And then Digital Foundry did a really nice job covering this system, so I'm going to try to remember to link the review down below in the description. But John from there, who reviewed it, ended up saying that there was quite a soft image which made things just not look as sharp as they were supposed to. And while this might be on all the games, I particularly noticed it on 2 games. The first one was Rayman, in which things just didn't pop out, I should say, as much as they were supposed to. The game is beautiful, but things just didn't pop out as much as they were supposed to because of the softer image on there. And the other game it was really obvious to me on was Ridge Racer Type 4. Again, a game I really don't have that much experience with. So that's the other bad thing too, when I'm noticing these on games that I'm not having that much experience with. But mind you, when I was playing it, I noticed that this game, the menus and the system on there are extremely heavy on text. And it's like black text on a yellow background. So it's a very stark contrast there, or difference, I guess you can say. And the text just did not look good. It was quite a soft image. And just to make sure that I was keeping some sanity, I even hit up my friend on here, Modern Vintage Gamer, and I hit him up and I was just like, hey, did you notice that there was kind of a soft image on some of these games? And I let him know these examples, and he agreed with me. He said, yeah, absolutely, I noticed that. So that's one of the inaccuracies you're going to deal with. And that's not even talking about, you know, the audio hiccups here and there, or the changes in audio, or maybe the graphical glitches, or even some things like, for example, Final Fantasy VII, the animation of when the entire screen ends up spinning into itself to go into battle. That changed a little bit. So if you're looking for a truly accurate representation of the original PlayStation, you're not going to be finding it here. Now, the other thing people have been talking quite a bit about, understandably so, is the choice to use PAL versions of games on the system. Now, there are 9 of the 20 games which are PAL. I don't know them directly off the top of my head here, but I can talk at least about a few of them. Now, why is this such a thing to look at? Why is this something that is so concerning? Well, the main thing is, NTSC games, so American or Japanese games, end up running at an NTSC standard, which means they run at a 60 Hz refresh rate. PAL games run at a 50 Hz standard. In 2018, this should not be an issue. With an old system like this, like, well, an old library like the PlayStation, you did have to worry about that, but you shouldn't have to worry about it anymore. Now, from a business sense, I can understand this. And this was explained to me, and it makes a lot of sense in this regard here. The reason why Sony most likely chose these PAL versions of the 9 games is because generally the Japanese versions of games would generally just be Japanese only. The American games would be English. Maybe they had a few other languages. But the European versions were in English, and they were in several other languages. They generally had the most language options on them. The problem is, they also ran slower as well. Now, from what I've tested and from what I've observed, this can be resolved simply by forcing these PAL games into NTSC mode on the emulator. Unfortunately, that is not possible unless you use a certain trick. Now, just playing through these games, I will say that if you have no experience playing these games, you're not going to notice. If you don't remember playing some of these games, you're not going to notice. But if you play a PAL game that you've played before, and it seems a little bit off, and it seems, you know, just like there's something wrong with it there, that it performs worse than you imagine, or than you remember at least, you're not imagining that. That is happening. And there's 2 games in particular I can think of here. Grand Theft Auto on here was one of the worst offenders. I played a lot of the original Grand Theft Auto on this system, and the PAL version plays at a steady 17 frames a second. If you force it into NTSC mode, it ends up playing at a steady 20 frames a second. Now, that's just an issue with the game. The game itself, because the PlayStation was never a performance powerhouse, mind you, but the game itself is going to be running at 20 frames per second pretty consistently. You're not going to be able to bump it up any further. But the point is, with a game like that, when it's already running at such a low frame rate, and I'm talking about frame rate, not the refresh rate here, but when it's running at such a low frame rate, going from 20 to 17, there is a difference on that. On top of that, these PAL games generally have bad frame pacing on them, and that's not the games themselves. That's an issue with how they're running on this particular classic system, unfortunately. And it's really disappointing to see that. The other game I noticed this issue with was Tekken 3. Tekken 3 is a fighting game. Tekken 3 and fighting games in general, you need a high frame rate on them. I mean, ask anyone who plays them competitively. I don't play competitively, but I know that it does make a difference. Now, this game does run at 60 frames a second, 60 Hz. But if you play the European version, it plays at 50 frames a second, 50 Hz. And that 10 frames a second absolutely makes a difference in how the game feels. It just feels a little bit slower, kind of feels off, and I'll say it's not even, to me as a very casual fighting person, it's not a huge difference. It's something that I did notice, but once you flip it into NTSC mode, my goodness, you can tell a night and day difference. Now, what I'm about to talk about, to me, shows a complete lack of care for the development of this system. You see, as I've mentioned already, this uses a open source emulator called PCSX-ReARMed, which is freely available, and there's nothing wrong with that for the most part, but you can actually access the full emulator setting. Right now, if you have a compatible keyboard, which generally seems to be like a Corsair gaming keyboard, I have a Corsair K70, literally hook it up to any of the USB ports on your PlayStation, boot up a game, and hit the escape key, and you can access all of the settings for the PCSX-ReARMed emulator on this system. Although that's really awesome and it gives me a chance to tweak everything, unfortunately, that shouldn't have been there, period. That should not have been accessible unless you modify the system, crack it open, really get into the firmware. But me just taking a keyboard, hooking it up, and hitting the escape key, that's not a hack. That's not a modification. That's something that a curious 10-year-old child could figure out if they have a gaming PC set up and get kind of bored one day. That's something that they can figure out. Now, I had said in my previous video about this, I don't know if this scenario just wasn't run by Sony, if they didn't test this at all, but it couldn't have been hard at all to disable that menu. And while as the tinker in me absolutely loves the fact that I can go in and mess with the settings and talk to you all about this, like say I have gone in here and I have changed the PAL games to NTSC mode and they run much better than they did. It's also frustrating that there was such a lack of care in this system that they wouldn't bother to disable an obvious debug feature like that. It's frustrating, man. It's real frustrating. So, and this is about how I'm feeling. Look at Lily right here. She's literally just melded into the couch. Maybe that's just how PlayStation Classic owners feel for the most part. I don't know. Although I've ranted a lot about the system, I do have to say I have enjoyed it. It's been a nice trip back through memory lane. And for me, I've enjoyed 75% of the library, as I've mentioned on here, and it's been cool messing around with this, and I'd love to see what the homebrew community and what the modding scene is able to do with this. In fact, it has technically been modded at this point, and it didn't take long at all. That USB trick I told you all about with the keyboard, big shout out to Retro Gaming Arts for discovering that and hitting me up about it. But the first day this was out, on Monday, the first day this was out, that was discovered. By Wednesday evening, a Twitter user had shown that he was able to turn on this system, get all the output showing on this separately, was able to load up a USB drive with a disk image on there, and play a separate image off of a USB drive. So technically this thing has already been modded. Within the first 3 days of launch, it has been modded, so how easy is it? We don't know yet. How's the implementation going to be? We don't know, but that's what I'm personally looking forward to seeing. So, on top of that as well, just with the PCSX settings on there, this is kind of going to be the last thing I'll talk about with that. When it comes to those settings, I think the other disappointing thing is that there were features that should have been on this system. There are features like scan lines, multiple save states. I mean, you can't really put cheats on there, mind you. I don't see Sony putting that out. But mind you, there's just been several other features that are baked into the emulator. And if you hit the escape key, you can access them on here that people wanted, understandably so, because the competition had them. And you can't access them by regular means. You have to use that keyboard trick. That's really frustrating. Other people have also complained about, the menu looking bland and everything. And I have to say, I liked the menu at first. It's definitely reminiscent of the original PlayStation CD player and all that. Now, I can also understand why people are annoyed by these, because if you look at the menus on the Nintendo or the Super Nintendo Classic, they're awesome, they're super dynamic, there's music in the background, they're beautiful. And then when it comes to the PlayStation, we have blandness. And finally, when playing your games, yes, they do stick to the letterbox mode of 4:3. Some people do like to stretch their aspect ratio, so although I know purists don't like that, it would have been nice to include something like that on there. Having extra filters, having a CRT filter, something along those lines would have been cool. But even just having a nice backdrop instead of just black in the background would have been really cool. There's just so many things with the UI that Sony could have done, should have done, and are possible with that keyboard trick, but unfortunately they're just hidden away or they don't exist. So it's going to be up to the modding community to breathe some new life into this. Now, last thing I want to talk about is my recommendation. Do I recommend picking up one of these? I have to say that first of all, you need to realize what audience you're in. For somebody who's watching the channel, you are most likely not in the audience that this is geared for. This is geared to be a quick stocking stuffer. This is geared to be a nostalgic device. This is geared to be sold to someone who hasn't played video games in a few years, and they remembered playing the PlayStation in their middle school, elementary school, high school, college years, and they see this, they're like, hey! I remember Metal Gear Solid. I always wanted to play Persona. I remember Ridge Racer. oh man, this would be awesome. You know what, $100, sure, I'll pick it up. And then they take it home, they hook it up, after they find an AC adapter, of course. But they take it home, hook it up, play around with it for 20 or 30 minutes, and then they're done. Or maybe they beat a game or two on it, and then they're done. That's who the prime target audience is for on here. The people who are saying build a RetroPie, the emulation isn't super good on there, it's not accurate, you can do all these other methods, this is not who this is for. Now, the reasons why I picked it up are because, one, I'm a PlayStation 1 fanboy who has no self-control, and two, honestly, a business reason. I wanted to pick this up, I wanted to play around with it, I wanted to make videos about this. So, for example, you know, the keyboard trick, I was able to see that happen day one. I tried it out myself, I made a video about it. The review, I wanted to play around with this, make a review about it. Whenever this thing is modded, I'm definitely going to make a few videos about this as well too. So I have a video YouTube business type reason to mess around with this. So I feel like that's a little more justified. But if you're just wanting to mess around with some PlayStation games here and there, you don't have any other consoles, or you want something that looks really cool to sit on your shelf, this is still a good option to have, but I'm going to have other recommendations as well too. Now, let's say you're still, like, I haven't convinced you and you're still kind of on the fence and thinking about picking this system up. Should you pick it up? What would my current recommendation be right now? I'm going to say, unless you have any of the reasons that I mentioned, you probably don't need to pick it up. I'm going to say that. And even when it comes down to it right now, yeah, it's $100, and I did say at the beginning of this portion of the video that $5 a game is certainly not bad. $100 overall is a bit for this system, especially compared to the Nintendo and Super Nintendo Classics, which are $60 and $80 respectively. So this is the most expensive classic system, so to speak, out there right now. What I would recommend is wait for a discount on it. I've already seen open box and used versions of this system selling for $80. I feel like it could do something like the PlayStation TV, in which it's just going to drop and drop and drop in popularity to the point where stores are going to be clearancing it out for $20 brand new. And at that point, if I go to a store and I see one of these for 20 bucks, hell yeah, I'm going to pick it up, alright? So that's what I can recommend. Maybe not a $20 price point, like, that's not what I'm saying is like the lowest I'll go on there, but I'm just saying if you're kind of on the fence about it, you don't want to pay the $100, there's no reason to pay the $100 to get this system right here. Wait for a few price drops, get one used, see what's going on. Also, pay attention to the modding scene on this as well too, because I have a prediction of what might happen. I think the same thing will happen with the PlayStation TV, maybe not to the same degree, but mind you, what happened with the PlayStation TV was it came out and it was like 100, 150 bucks, and it was pretty useless for the most part, and not that many people liked it, and it was really hard to sell, and stores started clearancing it out for $20. And then at one point, it was modded, and a lot of support came to it from the homebrew community, and a lot of cool tweaks came out, and it became super useful. Now to the point where you can't find them in stores because they're no longer made anymore, and people actually want to buy them, and now they're worth $100, $120 again, because they're actually pretty kick-ass systems. So maybe we'll see something like this happen with the PlayStation Classic, I'm not sure. But let me go ahead and get to my alternative recommendations for what you should consider purchasing or looking into if you don't want to buy one of these, but you have to have that PlayStation fix. Now, I know everybody has been screaming while watching this video saying, get a RetroPie, get a Raspberry Pi, set up a Pi. I'm actually going to be looking into options that don't include this, because I think sometimes it would be good to go with something that is official. Because remember when I said that Sony has other offerings that come directly from them? Well, first of all, let's take a look at the handheld options. You can get yourself a PSP. There's many different models of these systems. They can be had for under $100. You can end up getting a pretty cheap adapter to use a micro SD card on here, and every single one is modifiable in some way. It's a really easy to do software modification, and you can load up all of your games digitally on here. Now what if you want that second analog stick? Well, you can even go one step further and get the PlayStation Vita. I absolutely love this system. I think it has a great library, but if you find one on firmware, this is important, on firmware 3.68 or lower, you can modify it, and you can access the PSP emulator on here. And then through that, you can access the PS1 emulator on there. So you can have a really kick-ass triple system setup. You'll have your Vita library, your PSP library, and your PS1 library. And that's not even including all the other emulators that are available on this system. Granted, this will run you about $100, maybe more, maybe less, who knows on that. But still, it's absolutely nice to see. Again, firmware 3.68. Now, you might also be saying, I don't want to do a handheld mode. I really like the fact that I could take this thing and hook it up to my TV through HDMI. And I totally get you there. Now, if you can find one of these, which I've mentioned a few times, on firmware 3.68 or lower, that's important. Firmware 3.68. This is a PlayStation TV, otherwise known as a Vita TV. This is just the Vita in a TV form. You can also end up streaming your PlayStation 4 to this system. So if your PlayStation 4 is in another room of your house and you want to play it, let's say in your bedroom, you can hook this up and play it there. I'm not a big fan of that, admittedly. There's a little bit of a delay that I don't like, but mind you, you can do it. You can also do it on here, but I'm just not crazy about it. Point is, on this, you can also modify it the same way. You can access the PSP emulator, which gives you access to the PS1 emulator, and then guess what? You can play your PS1 games through your TV, through HDMI, using a DualShock 3 or a DualShock 4 controller. Now, I'm not even done recommending here. Let's take a look at some other options. Here, check this out. You can get yourself one of these guys, a PlayStation 3. If you get a fat PlayStation 3 or early models of the PS3 Slim, and they are on firmware 4.82, that's important, firmware 4.82 or lower, you can easily jailbreak these systems to run custom firmware, which will allow you to easily play games like PS1 games either installed to the hard drive or off a external hard drive or external USB drive of some kind. That's something that I can absolutely recommend. And on top of that, you have access to DualShock 3. So again, this is using an emulator straight up from Sony. You're able to do that easily enough. Now, if you get a later revision of the PS3 Slim or you get the PS3 Super Slim, you can run HAN on there, which is another type of modification, and you can still run PS1 games that are installed on there, but again, you have to be on firmware 4.82 or lower. Now, for the older systems, going back to this real quick, for the fat systems and the earlier slim systems, if you get a system that is higher than firmware 4.82, you can technically still jailbreak it. It's just going to be a lot harder. You have to open up the system, use a hardware flasher, just a lot of stuff that people aren't going to want to mess with. So that's why I'm saying, look for something that hasn't been updated recently and you can jailbreak it. But even if you don't want to jailbreak it, guess what? Every single PlayStation 3, every single one, the Fat, the Slim, and the Super Slim are all backwards compatible with PS1 games, meaning that you can get them off a PlayStation Network or you can put in a disc and play them right there. Granted, they are region locked, but that's still really cool. Now, I'm still not done recommending, guys. Get yourself a PlayStation 2. They can be had for quite cheap, and again, perfect backwards compatibility with the PlayStation 1. There are some modifications where you can play PlayStation 1 games off of a USB drive or an internal hard drive. There's many modifications you can do on this. They're kind of easy, kind of tricky, depending on what your level of comfort is with hardware or software mods. But granted, just keeping this basic here, you can take a PS1 game, put it in here, and you can even play your games through a component. And they'll look pretty nice on your TV if you have components available. So a PS2 would also be good to take a look at. Granted, I haven't even mentioned the prices on these. The PS3, my God, that is heavy. The PS3, you can get these for $100 or less with a controller and everything. I got one of these for $30 with a controller and cables and everything. One of these fat PS3s. So they're quite cheap to get. Just look like on Craigslist, look online, what have you. PS2s, super cheap as well. You can get them for $50 or less. And finally, why not just get a PS1? I have one in the box here, but check this out. I end up getting this PS1, a original PlayStation 1, with a copy of Metal Gear Solid and cables. I didn't get any controllers with it, but guess how much I paid? For everything in this box, including the box, I paid 50 cents for this at a thrift store. On top of that, in case you're new to the channel, I do modifications to my system's hardware and software, so I've actually installed a mod chip in this system, meaning that I can play imported games and games off of CDR discs as well. But even if you don't want to do that, you can go pick up your games, put them in the system, play them. They're not going to look as nice, unfortunately, because, you know, you'll be doing it through composite, most likely. But still, 50 cents for this, you cannot beat that. All you need to do is get a controller, which you can get for $2, $3 at probably the same thrift store, and you're good to go at that point. So that's about it for my recommendations on there. Now, the way I personally play my PlayStation 1 games, I like to play them on original hardware, and I like to also get, you know, nice quality on them. So I use something called the XRGB Mini, otherwise known as the FrameMeister. It is a converter which essentially just upscales everything really nicely onto modern TVs through HDMI. I then take a PlayStation 1 or PlayStation 1 Slim, which I have modified so I can play all my import games, backup games, original games, all that good stuff, and I play them through RGB SCART. So PlayStation, RGB SCART, to the FrameMeister, converted to HDMI. It looks beautiful, it plays awesome, and I'm playing on original hardware. It's great. However, that's also a very expensive option that I'm sure many people here watching this video, and if you've made it to the end here, thank you, but I'm sure many people watching this video do not want to do that, so I don't recommend that, but I'm just telling you all how I play them. But at the end of the day, you can get yourself a RetroPie and set that up and play your games. You can get yourself any of these systems here. You can play the games on your PC. Hell, you can play them on your phone. I love the future. I love 2018. Granted, we've been able to do this for the past 10 years or so, but still, I love where we're at. So that's my recommendation overall. Should you get a PlayStation Classic here? If you're a big PlayStation fanboy, or you're super interested in getting one of these, or you have a business reason, so to speak, to get one, I guess I can see the justification for getting that. If you're on the fence, definitely wait for a price drop, and regardless of who you are or what you're doing, you should absolutely wait to see what modifications are going to be shown on here. But when it comes to economic value and such, you're better off getting one of the many other options from Sony, which plays PS1 games, and either just playing by stock or modifying them to having a little bit more fun. Anyways, this is Mr. Mario signing off. Thank you all for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, a like would absolutely be appreciated. If you didn't like it, a dislike is fine as well, too. You might be feeling like Lily right there, but, what can you do? And Lily, this is your system now, alright? This is your system. That's her system.